it was a movie that was inspired by, you know, my childhood making these, you know, silly Super 8 films with a group of kids, and I called Steven Spielberg and said, "Would you want to do a movie about kids making movies as when they were, you know, at 14 years old, 15 years old?" And he had done the same, so he very quickly said yes, that he was interested in doing that.
Cool. Great. And so it's a very kind of timeless classic film of the kind that don't really get made anymore. Did you feel kind of pressurized to make it Spielberg-esque?
You know, the approach was not to try and copy or ape other films that, you know, were out there and especially as well known as Spielberg's, but because that time in my life was itself so influenced by the films that Steven made, it was really one of those things where it was more about the feeling of being a kid at that time and the influences that we were, you know, under that really sort of motivated that vibe in the movie. But the fact that it was an Amblin film that Steven was producing allowed me even more to really embrace that sort of DNA and not sort of run from it or be too self-conscious about it.
So was it kind of, it must have been like a dream come true as a kind of kid making films to be working with Steven?
It really was. And you know, working with him could, you know, it was such a blast and such a privilege, and he was just an unbelievable partner in this whole movie.
Talk a bit about the kids. How long did it take to find them and find the right kids for these parts?
We saw, you know, thousands of kids and took months and months and months, and the kids were, there were a lot of kids that were really good but not quite right. There were a lot of kids who were kind of too professional, kind of came in too actory, and there were a lot of kids who were great, who looked great, but didn't really have the chops to pull it off. So finding that perfect balance where you really believed, you know, this person was just an honest-to-goodness kid, but who also had the skills to play these moments and these extreme scenes was really challenging. But we have, you know, amazing casting directors, April Webster, Alyssa Weisberg, and they just worked incredibly hard to find this group, and we were just really blessed to have them.
It felt like, you know, as kids, you allowed them to have the performances that they should have. You know, how difficult was that, or how easy is it to do?
Part of it was just sort of hearing them and letting them be themselves as much as possible, and not making the moment that I called action into a sort of a call to change what they were doing and who they were, but rather to just continue with their sort of whatever energy they brought. You know, it was a challenge sometimes to kind of keep one kid focused or get another kid to have more energy, or, you know, have one kid to remember his lines or whatever it is. I mean, there was always a little bit of a challenge here and there, but ultimately the group was just spectacular.
And so with your films, there's always a sense of anticipation and secrecy. How much do you enjoy this aspect of kind of teasing the audience?
You know, I always like, you know, going to see a movie when I'm, you know, excited about it and compelled to see it and have not had the experience ruined. And there seems to be a sort of template for trailers and commercials to basically show you everything. And then you go to the theater and there's a little bit of a disappointment because you feel like, yep, that's what I knew, that whole thing, you know, and sure, it's a longer version, but it's often everything you expected. And I'm not trying to be overly secretive, I just want to make sure that we're not spoiling the experience.
Yeah, sure. And so what do you think the appeal is of these kind of monster, or we don't know it's a monster, of these films are for audiences?
You know, I think that having, you know, a creature, a monster, something, you know, otherworldly in a movie really only serves the movie when it's illuminating things about the people and the characters. And though I love the design of this creature and love the visual effects of the film, the whole point of the creature in the movie is really just a kind of way to externalize the issues going on inside the main character. It's kind of a metaphor, but the fun of the movie, the sort of spectacle of it, is something that, you know, I loved doing because it's the kind of thing that as a kid I dreamed about doing.
Okay. And so the visual effects as well are so very impressive in this film. How difficult was that to kind of render?
Well, you know, ILM worked on Mission Impossible 3 and Star Trek with me, and they're like the best of the business. They're just incredible. So it was a real thrill to get to do something that needed to feel of a different era and yet still feel of the modern day, you know, with filmmaking techniques. So the fun of, you know, doing some of the things, some visual effects are completely invisible in the movie that you don't even know are happening, others are much more obvious, but they were, you know, as they always are, just mind blowing in what they're able to do. So it was, you know, great fun to work with ILM again.
And just final question about this being an original, you know, story that you'd written yourself. Do you approach the film differently because that's the case, or?
No, I mean, I had written a couple, you know, original TV pilots before, and was one of the writers on Mission. And though I didn't write the first Star Trek film we did, I was involved in the script. So to me, it's not. I don't care who writes the movie. And I don't care where the idea, you know, comes from, whether it's an original idea or based on, you know, a novel or a series of films. I'm not sort of snobby in that. Like, you know, if it feels like that could be entertaining, that's the thing that's the most exciting to me.